Everybody, welcome to our very first video, Jedi vs. Society. Jediism versus bigotry. It's gonna be a good one. Let's get into it. Alright, so we got some points here that we're gonna dig into on how you are going to deal with this as a Jedi. Now, again, this is going to be repeated in every single video. So let's just get it out of the way now. Now say it with me. Jedi circle, Jedi method, AP/BP test, be a Jedi. Now how does that actually translate? Obviously that's why we have videos, because we need to understand kind of contextually how that translates. Here's what I want to use. I want to use an example so we can remember I'm not just making this up. This isn't something that's not Jedi related. Let's look at a Star Wars example here. We're going to look at Qui-Gon Jinn dealing with a moment where he has to deal with prejudice and how that plays out.
A droid army is about to attack the Naboo. We must warn them.
We are no like the Naboo. The Naboo think they so smarty. They think their brains so big.
Once those droids take control of the surface, they will take control of you.
We shall not think so. They not know of ocean.
You and the Naboo form a symbiont circle. What happens to one of you will affect the other. You must understand this.
We shall no care about the Naboo.
And speed is on her way.
Now in this moment we see logic and knowledge, and maybe even arguably an impassioned plea by Obi-Wan explaining the situation, that what happens to one of you happens to the other. This relates right now when we look at that. What happens to one of you affects the other. You must see this, right? You're not looking at the real threat. You're not looking at the real enemy. You're missing what's coming and what's happening. You're not focused on the real people. You're allowing your prejudice to divide you, and that is how they win. And that is how they win, right? We see that, but it does not work because people are entrenched. They grew up with this prejudice, right? This goes back through years. This goes back through the entirety of humanity, right? Humanity has been dealing with prejudice and bigotry from the very, very beginning, when there was not just Homo sapiens walking the earth, right? So we have that uncanny valley theory, right? There's a reason why that exists, right? The prejudice has been there from the very beginning. We have to work past that. Now people want to blame social media. It's not social media's fault. Social media is merely a tool. It merely allows people to express themselves and what they feel as expressing themselves in a safe environment, because there's that distance. So it actually allows humans to be more truthful with how they feel and what they think, because they feel there's no consequences to that. We're starting to learn that that's not exactly the case, is it, right? We can impose consequences. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequences. We're starting to see that, but social media is just a tool. It's not to blame here. So moving on, we're doing the Qui-Gon Jinn approach. The prejudice is there. These people are not going to be budged or moved from their viewpoint. You have to move on. You have to go. You have to set the example. You have to be the Jedi, and then you have to move forward. Now there's several ways we can do this, and that's what we're going to get into now, the step-by-step process. But you have to be the Jedi here. People are going to be changed by your example, not by your words, not by facts, but by your example. In that's where you're going to affect the most change. Probably not to the person you're talking to. This is also a Jedi thing. It's not always about the person you're talking to. It's about the silent ones watching behind your shoulder and behind their shoulder. There's always more people watching that conversation, whether in person or online or offline. There's always more people watching that conversation than just the two people involved. So be a Jedi. How do we do that? Knowledge. You're going to use knowledge. You're going to cite your sources. You got a computer in your pocket, all right? Use it. Don't let anybody ego trip you or be like, oh, you're going to pull out your phone. Don't fall for that. That is ignorance. That is fear. Don't fall for that. Be open to learning and being wrong. Question, right? So first we're That was almost second point. Almost ran on to the second point. First, we're going to use knowledge. We're going to use facts. We're going to use information. If that's not working, or if you want to kind of hold off on that, you can hold off on that. Go to questioning. Look, especially with family members, if you're at an event like a Thanksgiving dinner or something like that, or a holiday dinner, I should say, if you're at something like that, question. Don't tell. Don't debate. Question. This is one of my favorite tactics. It's a great Jedi tactic. It works for knowledge, diplomacy, patience, accountability. It works for all of our Jedi points here, right? No matter what Jedi text, whether it's like the Jedi Circle or whatever. Be the annoying 5-year-old. Dig into the whys. Dig into how would that work? Just ask questions. That a lot of times can lead people to maybe how silly their point is when there isn't the answers there, or when they realize that they keep falling back on very questionable quote-unquote news sources or online sources or things like that, or where they saw a meme and that's somehow where they're getting their information. So question, use questions, just dig into it. Be a philosopher, ask all the questions, never present a point, just ask questions. Do you feel? How does that work? What about this? How about these people? What about this situation? Why is that? Where does that come from? How do you think that came about? Ask those questions. Dig into it. That will save you a lot of grief. Questioning, and you can bring context through questioning, but context is my personal favorite tactic. Context. Someone brings up a point, instead of debating the point, instead of like tit for tat, let's trade news sources, things, I bring up context, history, the actual history, not the whitewashed version that we get written by imperialists, not the histories written by the victors. No, not that. We're looking at actual archaeology. We're looking at the definitive, provable things. I mean, archaeology is not definitive in a lot of ways. There's a lot of cultural assumptions that we make through it, but we can look at artifacts and we can date those artifacts relatively well. Dating's not perfect, but relatively well. So we can get pretty concrete, pretty good idea, pretty solid idea of what actually happened in history and what we're looking at, rather than just relying on the written history of victors, right? That's how we know that North America, the indigenous people of North America, had some great societies going on long before European settlers showed up. And we're talking about societies that can go back as far as Egyptian pyramids, that there were indigenous people here living in societies that we consider cultural societies by certain standards, right, that we use with agriculture and in art and things of that nature. Context. Let's use context. You can't discover a continent when people are already living on it. Context, right? Know your history. Dig into it, man. Context. You look at the context of it and you explore that issue throughout the historical context of everything. Worldwide. Look at the context, because that can help you sort through a lot of those issues. People are usually looking at things at a very small lens, and they're looking through it at that lens of now, present day, their lifetime. Well, when I was a kid. Okay, well, how about when your great-grandfather was a kid? Let's talk about that time frame. Shouldn't that be much different than now? Shouldn't we be on an evolution of growth? Ask the questions, provide context, use knowledge. Knowledge, question, context. And finally, you have to learn when to walk away. Learn when to walk away. Qui-Gon does it. Faced with prejudice, faced with that not changing mind, the Gungans do not care about the Naboo. Made very clear. So what does Qui-Gon do? He moves on. He's like, what's the most expedient way to get the heck out of here, because we're done here. And this isn't helpful, and there's a real threat coming, and we need to move on. That's what you need to do. Look, you ain't gonna change anybody's mind on Facebook. You're not. All right? Maybe you will. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll change some minds, but learn when to walk away, and learn what you need to do in the meantime. Learn what affects real change, okay? Learn about the organizations you can back, you can donate to, donate your time to, donate your resources to, the ones you can give a shout out to. Learn about those resources, learn about those organizations that are already out there affecting change. What are the ones that are already doing things? What are the ones that are already moving the world in a direction that you agree with, that aligns with Jedi ideals? Back that organization. Don't try to take over, don't try to create something new. Put your support behind those organizations. Affect real change. Learn when to walk away. Learn when you're done. Learn when there's nothing more to be gained, and walk away. Be good with that. Be good with learning to walk away and moving on and doing what you need to do. You got much more important things to focus on, right, than trying to change the mind of a bigot. You can do your part. Knowledge, question, context. If that's not working, if they're still throwing OAN facts at you, you have to shrug and be like, well, there's nothing I can do here. I did what I could. I was a Jedi. Be a Jedi. You were a Jedi. That's all you can ever ask. That's all you can ever do. That's it. So I hope that's helped. I hope that breaks it down. This has gone on much longer than I expected. Kind of wanted to keep these videos shorter. Hopefully our next ones will be much shorter. But this is a pretty big topic, pretty diverse topic. So hopefully that's helped you in dealing with bigotry as a Jedi. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you have another topic idea that you would like to discuss, Jedi versus society, how does a Jedi, interact with this thing, bring it on. Leave it in the comments below. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you watching, especially all the way to the end if you made it here. I mean, talk about Gavin. You know where the buttons are. May the Force be with you.
We like to think we have some form of control still, making our constant binary choices and voicing our equally shallow opinions more loudly or quietly. Most people can't even decide what color to wear or which burger to eat. Well, does it matter, man?